HumanX Ventures presents Inside the Coaching Mind. Terry Pettit coached the University of Nebraska's first national championship team in 1995 and put the state of Nebraska on a path to volleyball greatness. Now, Terry mentors coaches, writes books, and gives talks about leadership and team building to corporate and business audiences. Here's Coach Pettit to take us inside the coaching mind.
Thank you, David Young. David Young joins us after a sabbatical of 2 years where he walked from Tucson, Arizona to Austin, Texas. And it's great to have him back. David's family ran a major radio station in Sidney, Nebraska, and his sister Barbie played for Nebraska on the first team that played in a national championship match, and it's wonderful to have you back, David. We're also pleased to have our title sponsor, HumanX Ventures, an organization that recruits, develops, and mentors extraordinary talent. And Val Novak Warrior, our guest today, was an extraordinary talent. Val came from Oak Lawn, Illinois, where she played club volleyball, and came to Nebraska. First 2 years, she was a right side player, opposite. Her final 2 years, she was an All-American setter, set Nebraska in two Final Fours, including a national championship match in 1989. Val, it's wonderful to have you here, and I'm looking forward to our conversation following an interesting night in college volleyball.
Yeah, it's just an interesting weekend as well. So yes, very much so.
Val, I didn't know if you remember when I first saw you as a player, but I was in California. Going to see another recruit, Jackie Cook, who played for Cal Juniors. And I saw this kid run across the court, and I thought, wow. I didn't see her play volleyball initially, but just saw her run across the court and liked her spirit. So I watched the match, and so we began the recruiting process with you. And it ended up that both Nebraska and Purdue were recruiting the same two setters, Val Novak and Billy Wincett's sister. Billy's sister ended up going to Purdue. You ended up coming.
Illinois.
Illinois, yes. Who was our rival at the time.
Right.
And you came to Nebraska. Your first 2 years, you were a right side player, and Lori Endicott was the setter, so you had good sets. And then you became our starting setter. And in your last year, Nikki Stricker, who would become the next setter, was a middle blocker. We had kind of a thing going there all the way through Grady to Sapero, where somebody would play as a non-setter for their first year or two, and then move into the setter position. And what type, how did that experience as a non-setter prepare you to be a setter?
Well, setters always love to hit, so that helps when you become a setter that you get the hitting out of you. But it's just being comfortable on the court and being comfortable with the people around you, and learning from your current setter, et cetera, that how to lead a team and what you need to do in certain situations. So that comfortability on the court is really what helps when you're hitting the first 2 years.
We ran a special play for you when you became a setter, and Nikki middle blocked her first season, but maybe once every 2 or 3 matches. We didn't show it very often because we didn't want teams to pick up on it, but we would deliberately appear to mishandle the ball off the serve, pass it to left front, where Nikki would set it to you at right front. And so it would look like a broken play, but you were left-handed, and we would get an easy side out. Nowadays, it would be harder to disguise that because with volumetrics, if people watched us enough, they would begin to figure out that wasn't by accident. But
yeah.
So there's an example of a tactical move, and sometimes I'm not sure people understand what the difference is between strategy and tactical decisions. strategy is an overall plan of how we are going to approach an opponent. And it could be all the opponents. And Val, earlier today, you mentioned it. We want to make the opponent uncomfortable. And uncomfortable means that they're having to make a movement that they don't want to make, or maybe you have a passer that is not comfortable drop stepping to her right, or maybe if we serve short, we eliminate a slide, and that's their best attack. The tactics are how you do it. And the tactics, to some degree, depend on your talent, so that you can say, well, we'd like to throw the ball at the setter. The easiest way to do that is off a 31 or a wide A to the middle, but you have to have a middle that can do that. And you have to have a setter that can find her. Otherwise, it's like asking a baseball player to hit a home run who can't hit a home run.
Right.
Or lay down a bunt. And I thought of all the players I coached, you probably had, you came to Nebraska with more tactical insight than probably any other setter that we had. Where do you think that came from?
Maybe being around three brothers growing up and just playing sports the whole time, and just kind of learning body movement patterns. And I can tell if someone had sprained an ankle or had a bad knee, or just they weren't comfortable going one way or the other. And then just being involved in and watching tons of sports, I think that's where it probably came from.
Well, the key word here again, you said patterns. I think curious people notice patterns. Notice that the ball's always set here in this rotation, or this person here does this, and you can't just limit that to volleyball. People that do this, if they're just watching people, sitting on a bench watching people, begin to notice patterns. Would that be true with you?
Absolutely. Even if I'm in a crowd and people are walking around, I'll be like, oh, that person, she has a problem with her knee or whatever. So just gait and, like you said, movement patterns. Just, how do you move to your right? How do you move to your left? One of the things I've noticed in volleyball is that a lot of times players these days, and I think we talked a lot about this before, but when they're going after a ball and are about to dive on the ground for the ball and the ball's to their left, they go with their right hand. So to me, as a coach, I'd say tip the ball to her left, because she's going with her right hand, which now is not comfortable, and the ball will go a different way, but instead of taking that ball with their left hand. So just little things like that can make a huge difference.
Well, Val, you've coached club in high school. How hard is it to teach someone, I guess the larger issue, how hard is it to teach someone to be curious? How hard is it to teach someone to recognize those type of patterns?
Well, earlier, in earlier years, it was a little bit easier, but now it shouldn't be as hard, but they're not as involved in watching videos. They watch little clips on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, of volleyball, but they don't watch the whole match. So it's a matter of just kind of showing them repetitiously what to look out for. Whereas we watched videos, well, we really didn't have that, so we had to do that. Now they just watch videos, and I don't know if they actually can see in those short clips what's going on. So that's kind of a hard thing, because the kids these days don't watch enough volleyball, I don't think. If you want to be a great volleyball player, you need to watch volleyball. You have the world at your fingertips. You can Google how to go after a ball, how to set a ball, how to have an approach to hit, all those things. And I don't think they spend the time actually immersing themselves in that information.
Right. They may not be naturally curious. We had an interesting couple of days here in college volleyball. 4 of the top 5 teams in the first AVCA poll or the second AVCA poll lost. Does that Does that mean those teams should be were overrated, or does that mean there's a lot more good teams out there than maybe people realize?
Well, I think a lot has to do with the transfer portal and transferring as well. I think that you can kind of build your team now and, year to year, as opposed to every 4 years or every 2 years building your team. So these teams like last night, SMU, they have 6 transfers, which really played a key role in the match for SMU. And I think you see a lot of teams having these transfers that play key roles in their program. And it's their first year there as opposed to being there for 3 years and then playing a key role.
But how do you build? I understand what you're saying. They had 7 people in their 5th year, very experienced team. But how do you build continuity with that team? How do you bring that group together? You can only start bringing them together, I guess, in the spring or of the preceding fall season. How do you make that team as spontaneous, say, as a team that's been together for several years?
Well, it's almost like we just got done with the Olympics or the pro league mentality. Hey, we're going to put these great players, these high level players together, and we're going to figure out where they work best together and how they work best together. And it's just a matter of they're all really good. And I don't know how much that you need the continuity, but when everybody's good or at similar levels, then it's easy to have that continuity.
How would you know, though? For example, you've played with players that were very alert and would recognize what's going on the other side of the net, and you've played with very good players that weren't as alert, that maybe somebody on the court had to manage, had to remind them of who the hitters were and what happened in this rotation. If you're evaluating a player on another team that entered the portal and you're going to get to watch some video, how would you know whether or not the player's alert?
I guess you just got to, again, just watch their eyes, see how much other players are saying things to them. But I think that it depends on the level you're playing, that if you're going to be alert or not. I don't think you can be on the court and not be somewhat alert. So it's just...
I would beg to differ.
You have to be somewhat alert. But, coming together, Nebraska does a great job coming together after each play, and they're talking to each other and saying things to each other in that huddle. So it's just a matter of not only listening is a skill as much as it is a better part of the communication skills. So you've just got to listen and say, hey, put it here, and be very distinct at what you're saying to certain people.
Well, volleyball's a sport where the players come together maybe more than any other sport. It's every 15 seconds or so. They're talking, they're making eye contact. Hopefully they're sharing information. You were at an impressive venue last night. You saw SMU, Southern Methodist University in Dallas, host Nebraska. SMU had received votes, but was an unranked team. However, a very experienced team that was in the tournament last year and stronger than they were last year. And SMU swept Nebraska. But before we get to that aspect, what was the venue like? What was the feeling in the arena?
Well, everybody's on top of you. So it's almost like the old school Texas venue where the court, where the Terraflex ended, that's where the bleachers were. So it was literally a bowl. So they were on the bottom of the bowl and everybody was up and around. It was so loud in there. It was just it was amazing how loud it was in there. And, Nebraska has a great venue for volleyball, but when you have 6,000 people on top of you, it's really different than in the Devaney Center where they're kind of spread out and there's that room between the court and the bleachers and the, the back end and stuff. It was right there on top of each other.
But you would also think that Nebraska plays in front of large crowds all the time. So this was a new experience for the SMU players as well. They had not played in front of 6,000 people before. Did you feel that the crowd impacted Nebraska's play?
I think that Nebraska's maybe a little bit, but I think that they were just maybe the venue. The scoreboard was really low too, so that was kind of weird. But you never know. You come in confident, and sometimes teams just surprise you. Like you think, oh, we're just at SMU. They went. Maybe they shouldn't play Texas teams anymore because TCU took them to 4. So, it's you can't underestimate anyone these days because whether or not they're a big college or a small college or, ranked or not ranked, they're going to surprise. People are going to surprise each other this year.
Southern Methodist won 25-23, 25-21, 25-18. In that first set, I believe Nebraska was up 20-15. And it's very difficult with rally score type volleyball for a team to overcome a 20-15 lead. I'm sure that had to give SMU not just motivation, but you get energy anytime you come back in a volleyball match. What do you think happened there in endgame in that first set?
Well, I think that, Natalie Foster was serving a rocket of a ball, number one.
And she's a middle attacker who was very successful offensively. I think she had 8 kills. I don't know that she
hit 462.
Yeah, 462.
Yeah.
Which is better than Ted Williams.
So she had a rocket. And then just the crowd and, it just kind of flipped. After she was serving rockets, then it was just a matter of their other middle was just blocking and hammering the ball at the time. And they just slowly crept up. And I think it just really took Nebraska by surprise.
Mm-hmm. You also saw Nebraska play the AVCA showcased in Louisville. You saw them play Kentucky, Craig Skinner's team, very well-coached team. When I work with teams, I say that if you want to beat a team as good as you or better than you, talent-wise, you have to outserve and pass them. And last season, Nebraska had the best passing team in the country through the regular season. They returned the same personnel, maybe even better. How did you feel Nebraska served and passed in that Kentucky match?
I think they need to serve tougher. And I think that, tougher, not necessarily meaning speed of the serve, but motion on the ball and serving seams and serving, like you said, tactically, where you're taking people out of their comfort zone and hitting certain sets. So just the movement of the ball around and again, serving deep seams, serving short 10-foot line, maybe attacking a certain player, but not attacking her at her body, but attacking her left or right, just to take them out of what they need to do or what they're comfortable doing, really.
When you were playing, everybody served from zone 1, which is just over the end line at right back. And because you were left-handed, I really never worried about the ball sailing out to the left. The ball tended to come back to the right. And if we could get the ball on the right hip of that receiver over in zone 1, most players don't drop step as well to their right as they do to their left. And the reason for that is the setter is pushed past the middle of the court, a little bit to the right side. So they learned to drop step or front the ball square to the setter. So do you sense that as you watch Nebraska's team, and I didn't see last night's match live. I was watching Northern Colorado and Colorado State, two teams here in Fort Collins, had a great match. I was watching that, came back and watched the first two sets of Nebraska's match. So there's some things you can't see on television. So what I'm hearing from you is you didn't think Nebraska had, I think, 11 serving errors and only one ace. SMU had 7 or 8 aces and
10 errors.
Yeah. So who's serving well on Nebraska? Who would you say is their strongest server at this point?
I think Krause has a great serve. She gets some motion on the ball and it sometimes bottoms out.
Explain what you mean by that to people that don't know when a serve.
A ball that it looks like it's coming right at you and it's about to hit your arms and then it just drops to the floor. Yeah. So that's kind of the floating and it just bottoms out. It just all of a sudden takes a nosedive down and there's nothing you can do about it. I think Lexi does a great job placing the ball in different places for different situations. But consistently, I probably would say Krause is one of the better servers.
That serve that bottoms out, I first saw that when we were playing in a regional at Notre Dame, at Illinois. And Notre Dame was playing Western Michigan. And one of the Bremners, I don't know which one, was playing for Notre Dame. And she was running points, and I couldn't figure out why the ball was dropping. So I got up from my seat, went around behind the court, and watched. And here's what I saw: that when a server contacts the ball, it's kind of a flush hand, but she was lightly laying her fingers on top of the ball, almost like a baseball pitcher would throw a changeup. So it wasn't creating any topspin, but the ball wasn't moving as fast as it appeared to, and that's why it dropped. And we came back from that and experimented with our players and found out that I thought it was a good serve. And from watching on TV, it appeared that there were several players on SMU that were had similar movement on their serves. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and like I said, Foster was probably the best one who did it, and that's why she had so many service aces. She, especially in a critical time in the second against Lexi of all people, that ball she would go 1-to-1, serve from zone 1 and go cross court to 1, and that ball just bottomed out 2 feet before the end line, and it looks like it's going out, but all of a sudden it drops in. And I think that was kind of deflating for Nebraska, especially since Lexi is such a phenomenal serve receive passer. And for it to happen to Lexi, that really kind of drained some of the water out of them. They were like, wow, our best passer, our libero, our senior captain's getting aced. And it's been 3 aces in a row. So that really kind of deflated them, I think.
Yeah. And I think we should emphasize here, this is a very good team that Nebraska played. There's a tendency, it certainly is not as well known as Texas or Baylor or Texas A&M, but this particular team's very good. You wouldn't have seen the coach that was interviewed, the SMU coach between sets, but you commented on about her earlier. What's her background, and what'd you think of adjustments she made?
Well, I think she did a great job. I'm not sure of her background. I didn't dive deep into that. I know she's a young coach, and as a young coach, she was probably scared to death to play in Nebraska, but at the same time, like, wow, we could really do this, But she did a phenomenal job coaching, and her staff helped her out with that. And just, you know, the outside hitters attacking, she's got one that's a high flyer. And I think when you block a high flyer, you have to wait till they jump and then you jump, because she was hitting the top of the block and over the top of the block, which is weird for us. But, so that's one of the things. She did a great job recruiting and getting those transfers and just running the slide with the girl, the one middle that transferred in from Florida.
Well, I think the girl you were talking about that was using the block toward the end of the match was a transfer from Wyoming, and it used to be decades ago we would delay and not jump until the attacker jumped. If you did that all the time now, you'd be killed. I mean, because attackers are off the floor sooner. But against this particular attacker, who was smaller, she's somebody that what you're saying is you needed to delay more, so she didn't see the hands quite as early, and then jump. And that's a very sophisticated adjustment that that maybe Jalen might have seen as he's standing at the net. Jalen Reyes, Nebraska's assistant coach. The response to this on social media was about what you could expect. I mean, Nebraska loses a volleyball match. There were people saying ridiculous things. They don't understand. If they and they don't watch a match the same way that a coach does. Most fans, or many fans, are only interested in outcome. Did we win the point? Did we lose the point? So we could have played the same match and won, and well, we didn't play our best, but we won. But if you lose, even if you do certain things pretty well, fans tend to take their identity from winning and losing. We've got this Colorado football game coming up, and everybody is outcome oriented. I mean, God forbid if we lose that football game, the state will shut down for a week. But coaches and players can't approach it that way. We're process oriented. And I know I never mentioned winning or losing to a team. And I know Coach Osborne, Nebraska's great football coach, never mentioned winning or losing. I use the word running through the tape like a sprinter. You don't want a sprinter running down the track, looking around, seeing where other people are. You run through the tape and find out where you are. So what's the difference in coaching with a process and coaching outcome? And what's the difference in pressure that it puts on a team?
Well, just being number one ranked is pressure, right? So there's already that pressure. And, Nebraska volleyball, Texas volleyball, a lot of these teams, and I can name Minnesota, Penn State, Stanford, Wisconsin, they're expected to win. They're expected to win. You go there because you want to win. And that's the expectation. So the coach never really has to say that. Now, Nebraska had battled some fantastic rallies last night, like unbelievable rallies last night that they ended up losing. And that kind of puts a puncture in the balloon, right? It's always an expectation, but when little things happen, just like I said, unfortunately, Lexi got ace 3 times. That's an expectation for her personally not to have that happen. It's an expectation for Merritt Beeson to put the ball away and to lead that team. And so they all have personal expectations that are either brought upon by themselves or by the team or coaching staff or what have you, that kind of weigh more than that whole winning expectation. Am I am I letting my teammates down? Am I letting, the school down? So that is more pressure, I feel, than just the overall, we need to win,
Yeah, I remember.
You can lose, you can play an outstanding match and lose. But, when you lose like they did last night, it's heartbreaking because, now what did I do personally to help my teammates out?
I remember getting into a huddle in the Coliseum when we were playing Illinois. And I believe it went to the fifth game. But I remember going to the huddle on the fourth set and saying, guys, get this game to the fifth set and we'll win. Endicott is just that, I'm speaking about our setter. Endicott will win this for us. And I didn't mean that she was going to go up and pound the ball. I meant that under pressure, she would be more consistent than the other setter. Now, would I have said that if it was a freshman setter, which we didn't start a freshman setter? Probably not. But right. I knew the team understood that and handled it well. I'm going to go through the Nebraska roster here, and if you can tell me what you think they're really doing well, and if you think there's something that you anticipate will develop as the season goes on. Merritt Beeson came in as a transfer last year. Wonderful person. She was on a podcast. I can't imagine anyone that cares more about her teammates than Merritt. Last year, I think she hit 280 on the right side. She has, from an attack standpoint, struggled this year. Has had 4 matches right around 100 or lower. What are Merritt's gifts and what are the challenges moving forward?
Merritt does a great job of going to the next point. I tell my kids, once the ball goes down and the point's over, it's 1942. It's history. It's gone. You can't get it back. And I think Merritt does a great job of that and trying to relay that to her teammates. And she's just the mama on the team. I think she has a lot of weight on her shoulders being in that role and being that mama and taking care of everybody and all that. But I think she does an outstanding job at that. Hitting and blocking wise, I think it'll come along at, that the hitting part is always, threefold. It's the pass, it's the set, and it's the hitter. So, you've got to get the two other ones together so that she can be more successful. And I think that will come. And it's just a matter of time on that one. But I think she does a great job leading the team. And, she is a great physical attacker. And they'll figure it out here. We're still early. I mean, we're in week, 3? So, it'll come.
Andy Jackson is a much improved player. She came in very raw, had not played a great deal of high-level club volleyball. She's from Colorado, but had a good year last year, and she certainly has started better this year. Almost unstoppable if she gets the ball in the right position on the slide. I thought last night she struggled a little bit in picking up the opposing middle attacker on quick attack. Sometimes I just see her go through the picture and kind of fly across with one leg. What did you see? You were there at courtside.
So she's like a gazelle. She just pops off the ground really fast. And she's so high. And it's almost like Shrek from Wisconsin. They're so high blocking that she's got to press across, but then she leaves the triangle between the top of the net and her elbows open. That's the area where a hitter can hit and score points against her. She can't get her hands on that ball. So sometimes maybe not full jumping on that block, maybe just kind of pressing over as opposed to going up after the ball. But hitting wise last night too, she was, man, even in front, she was killing the ball. It was a lot. She's just a fun player to watch. And she's, hitting wise, she has greatly improved, and blocking wise will come. And a lot of that has to do with vision too. And recognizing, like you said earlier, someone saying, hey, this person the last time ran this, you got to watch that. and maybe not take 4 steps one way, but maybe take a half a step and then be able to react both ways on that. But that'll come.
Yeah. What another thing that you can't see from TV, could Nebraska have set the middle more than they did? Both Andy and Rebecca.
So I'm a person who was trained by you and my club coach even to force the middle. So even or set away from the flow. So there was a rally where everything was at the left side of the court, and that ball needs to go back to Beeson because everybody on both sides of the court were on that side of the court, and that's a ball you set away. So,
and Val, I'm going to interject here. Setting against the flow means the setter, if the setter's coming into the middle of the court, she sets back. If she's backing up, she sets forward.
Yes. And even if she comes off the 10-foot line, that middle's got to be up somewhere so she can set that middle and force that middle, because 90% of the time teams just set the easy high ball or the easy back ball, but forcing the middle, it's interesting that when I played, I tried to go middle, right, middle, right, and then throw the ball outside to loosen up the outside. Well, now it's like outside, right side, outside, right side, middle. So it's, that's, again, that could be one of the strategy things that I'm a nerd about. But, forcing the middle opens up your outsides. And the more active you can get your middles, the better that's going to be for your pin hitters. And that's not happening in college volleyball. We're more, if the 3 outsides got 100 combined sets, the middles would get 40 sets, and it's not balanced that way anymore. It's the middles aren't getting as many sets as they should, I don't think, throughout the whole college volleyball.
Yeah. Of course, the setter on the team's Merritt Beeson, who had a terrific year last year.
Bergen.
Not Merritt Beeson, Bergen Riley. She had a tremendous year last year. What do you see? I'm sure when you watch a match, the first thing you look to is probably the setters. But talk about the 2 setters last night. The setter for Bergen for Nebraska, and the other setter for SMU. I believe her name is Celia. Yeah, I thought she had a really good match.
Yes, and I think Nebraska is trying to run fast. So I think they're trying to set a low flat ball to the outside, like a fast ball, try and make it fast, get it out there, which I understand to beat the block. But when you have people jump touching 10-2, 10-3, 10-4, whatever, it's hard to set it. It's hard to hit that low flat ball, especially if it's tight. And in scramble plays, it can be tight. So I think it needs to have a little bit of an arc on it and go, I think last year they set a flat ball to the top of the antenna more so than they are this year.
So the pinnacle has to be higher.
Right. And I think the setter on the other side of the court was just consistently setting the same ball to her players the whole match. And no matter if she was off the net or on the net, that ball was the same height, the same speed, and landed in the same place, 90% of the time.
It's, if I went up to 10 people that follow volleyball and I said, what's Nebraska's brand? They would say Nebraska defense. Nebraska's great blocking and defensive team. So it's interesting when a team has that as their brand, all of a sudden runs into another team that's playing at the same level in those areas. You're going, whoa, usually we're holding teams to 100 or below, and all of a sudden this team is rallying right with us. I don't know how much of a factor that was, but
SMU had 43 digs, Nebraska had 36.
Right. I did look at the stats after the second set, and I believe Nebraska's attack percentage was higher, and I believe they had more kills, and yet they'd lost 2 sets, and that was primarily because of serve. SMU had aces, Nebraska didn't. Nebraska had reception errors and no aces. Rebecca Alec is one of my favorite players. I don't know how any coach would not want her on your team.
Exactly.
Take no prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
How did she play last night?
Rebecca is always Rebecca, and that's what I love about her. She's always her. So, she's just a consistent personality and a consistent player. And she does her job very well. And, under pressure, I've coached many teams, and we get in situations where, you feel, I call it the crumble, and you feel that crumble happening. And I just call a timeout and I say, listen, all you have to do is your job. So, Merritt, what's your job? To hit and to block. Lexi, what's your job? Dig and serve receive. So you have two things to think about. That's all you need to think about. Don't think about anything else. And, generally that helps. So just giving them something specific to think about. And Becca, she gets the team going. She is feisty. She's, she's aware of what's going on the other side of the court. And she's just a fun player to watch.
And I also thought toward the end of the second set that she was available in transition. She was really working hard to be up every time, transitioning away from the setter. And boy, I used to love that as a coach when you had a middle that worked that hard. To me, Harper Murray is more explosive this year, quicker off the floor, quicker with the arm, and probably is going to score more from the back row than she did last year. What did you see live?
Well, Harper's core strength is unbelievable, and that's what makes her hit the ball so hard, is that core strength. And
explain to some people who don't know what core strength is.
So anytime you're, even in baseball, a pitcher, etc., all those pitches come from the rotation of their arm comes from their core. So their abs, their lower back, their glutes, that's all what's happening to make that arm swing super fast. And she's so strong in that core section of her body that she can just hit the ball as hard as she can. It's like someone throwing a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. That's not coming from their shoulder. It's coming from their core. And she just, she's worked hard to be stronger, and it shows. And she, again, she kind of has that Alec mindset in that we're winning. Like those two, they're probably walking in the huddle going, we're winning this match. Let's go, because they're just dogs in a fight is really what they are.
Right. Well, Lexi Rodriguez is Lexi Rodriguez, and everyone considers her as good a libero as there is in the country. I appreciate the fact that Coach Cook experimented a little bit last night. This is the time to experiment, and he started Taylor Landfair. And I've never seen Taylor play live, but it's almost like wheeling in a Trojan horse. All of a sudden, this person comes out who's bigger, stronger, faster than everybody else. Mm-hmm. It didn't mean that Krause, who's also maybe is a player that I like as much as anybody on the team, didn't mean that she wasn't playing well, but he probably just wanted to give Landfair the opportunity to do some things. She was only out there for one set, and she hits missiles that the libero either digs or the libero's knocked over cross court.
Or she ducks playing dodgeball.
So what's the ideal role for Taylor Landfair?
That's a hard one, because her and Krause are kind of battling out, right? And Taylor's trying to get on the court. She just, she's just got to stay in the grind and be a positive, leader. She's got the experience. She knows how to play. So things will come. And, she's just got to find her role on that team and accept the role and move forward with that role, because they do need her. And they need her whether she's going to start a match or whether she's going to come in and, block a couple balls or put a ball away or serve, receive, pass. They need her. So she's just got to figure out the role and accept the role and move forward and do the best she can in that role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. It's an interesting season. Wisconsin began the season 0-3, and I thought that they returned as much talent as anybody in the country. But they have challenges too. It's like they have 4 exceptional middle right side players, but Coach Sheffield will figure it out, and Coach Cook will figure it out, and I don't think we have to worry about Texas. Texas has great personnel. There's Maddie Skinner was the best player in the tournament last year. There's no reason that she won't return to that form. I was a little curious about why, they won a national championship with a freshman setter last year. I don't know quite how you pronounce her name. Is it Swindle or Swindell?
Swindle.
And yet she wasn't the starting setter. They brought in a player from Baylor. I'm not in the gym, and so I really can't comment about that. But we've got those 4 teams. Minnesota has surprised me. I didn't know that they had the level of talent that could beat Texas. I thought they could compete Texas. And then the other team that has surprised me is Stanford. We know they lost Kip, but that doesn't seem to have been as big a loss maybe as we thought it might be. The most important thing is they return an elegant, great player in their setter. I'm trying to think of her name now, but let me pull up her roster here. I saw her dad play Harold Miner in the Nebraska Bob Devaney Center. But is it Cammie Miner?
That sounds right.
Yeah. But she's truly a great player, and they've got Ruben on the left, and so right now the undefeated teams of the top 8-9 teams are Pitt, Dan has done a tremendous job there. I really respect what he did. He went after kids that didn't have the size that maybe you might recruit to Texas or Nebraska or Stanford, until he had enough success that he could go get kids that maybe were being recruited by those programs. But they've been in the last 3 Final Fours. I don't think it makes any difference whether you're ranked first now or 15th or whatever. What matters is, does your coaching staff and do the players believe you're on a journey to compete for a national championship?
Right.
I think there's about 4 teams in the Big Ten that are on that path. I think there's probably 4 teams in the ACC that believe that. Probably 4 teams in the SEC. In the Big 12, again, I haven't seen play, but I've seen Kansas scorers. They have a great team. I think Creighton has a great team. That'll be an interesting matchup a week from today in the Bob Devaney Sports Center. If you want to see just a beautiful team that has great chemistry, Kirsten Booth's Creighton Volleyball does that. But there's great coaching everywhere. I watched this Northern Colorado team play Colorado State last night, and I just hope that money doesn't change that. There's not just so much money out there that schools like Northern Colorado, Colorado State, Creighton can't continue to have great volleyball teams, that you can only be in Division I if there's millions and millions of dollars. Val Novak, you're always a treat to be around. You see the game differently, and that's why I enjoy talking with you. Give my best to Steve, and I also want to thank our our sponsor, Human X Ventures, and Brad Black. They have a unique understanding of talent and how to leverage it. I encourage you to go to their website. To the people out there, keep the faith. Things are going to be good. Everything is going to work out.
It's still early.
See you next time.
Inside the Coaching Mind is presented by Human X Ventures and is pleased to be a part of the Learfield Varsity Podcast Network. If you're on Facebook, look for the Inside the Coaching Mind group and join a vibrant discussion of volleyball and leadership. And terrypettit.com is where you'll find Terry's books, writings, and downloads, as well as subscription links for all your podcast apps.